Hi you guys, it's me, and we're going to be reading the introduction to The Artist's Way. So this is my second video. If you haven't watched part 1, go watch part 1, and then you can come back to part 2. But yeah, so this is the introduction portion of The Artist's Way. Also, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. But like I said, go watch part 1 first, or else you're going to be super, super lost. When people ask me what I do, I usually answer, I'm a writer, director, and I teach these creativity workshops. The last one interests them. How can you teach creativity? They want to know. Defiance fights with curiosity on their faces. I can't, I tell them. I teach people to let themselves be creative. Oh, you mean we're all creative? Now disbelief and hope battle it out. Yes. You really believe that? Yes. So what do you do? This book is what I do. For a decade now, I have taught a spiritual workshop aimed at freeing people's creativity. I have taught artists and non-artists, painters and filmmakers and homemakers and lawyers, anyone interested in living more creativity through practicing an art, even more broadly, anyone interested in practicing the art of creative living. While using, teaching, and sharing tools I have found, devised, divined, and been handed, I have seen blocks dissolved and lives transformed by the simple process of engaging the great creator in discovering and recovering our creative powers. Also, there's like a little note at the top, and it says, the primary imagination I hold to be the living power by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. The great creator? That sounds like some Native American god. That sounds too Christian, too New Age, too stupid, simple-minded, threatening. I know. Think of it as an exercise to open-mindedness. Just think, okay, great, creator, whatever that is, and keep reading. Allow yourself to experiment with the idea that there might be a great creator and you might get some kind of use from it in freeing your own creativity. Because the artist's way is, in essence, a spiritual path initiated and practiced through creativity. This book uses the word God. This may be volatile for some of you, conjuring old, unworkable, unpleasant, or simply unbelievable ideas about God as you are raised to understand Him. Please be open-minded. Being open-minded is very important in this life, you guys. I don't really like the way I look in this video, but I feel like who really cares? It's whatever. I'm trying to be comfortable while I read this. Man is asked to make himself what he is supposed to become to fulfill his destiny. Paul Tillich. I myself do nothing. The Holy Spirit accomplishes all through me. William Blake. Those are just little things at the side. Remind yourself that to succeed in this course, no God concept is necessary. In fact, many of our commonly held God concepts get in the way. Do not allow semantics to become one more block for you. When the word God is used in these pages, you may substitute the thought good, orderly direction or flow. When the word God is used in these pages, you may substitute the thought good, orderly direction or flow. Interesting. What we are talking about is creative energy. God is useful shorthand for many of us, but so is goddess, mind, universe, source, and the higher power. The point is not what you name it. The point is that you try using it. For many of us, thinking of it as a form of spiritual electricity has been a very useful jumping off place. I would agree with that. By the simple scientific approach of experimentation and of observation, a workable connection with the flow of good, orderly direction can easily be established. It is not the intent of these pages to engage in explaining, debating, or defining that flow. You do not need to understand electricity to use it. Do not call it God unless that is comfortable for you. There seems to be no need to name it unless that name is a useful shorthand for what you experience. Do not pretend to believe when you do not. If you remain forever an atheist, agnostic, so be it. You will still be able to experience an altered life through working with these principles. I have worked artist to artist with potters, photographers, poets, screenwriters, dancers, novelists, actors, directors, and with those who knew only what they dreamed to be or who only dreamed of being somehow more creative. I've seen blocked painters paint, broken poets speak in tongues, halt and lame and maimed writers racing through final drafts. I have come to not only believe, but know. No matter what your age or your life path, whether making art is your career or your hobby or your dream, it is not too late or too egotistical or too selfish or too silly to work on your creativity. One 50-year-old student who always wanted to write used these tools and emerged as a prize-winning playwright. A judge used these tools to fulfill his lifelong dreams of sculpting. Not all students become full-time artists as a result of the course. In fact, many full-time artists report that they have become more creatively rounded into full-time people. Another little side thing here, it says, why indeed must God be a noun? Why not a verb? The most active and dynamic of all. Mary Daly. Through my own experience and that of countless others that I have shared, I have come to believe that creativity is our true nature. That blocks are an unnatural thwarting of process as once as normal as miraculous as the blossoming of a flower at the end of a slender green stem. I have found this process of making spiritual contact to be both simple and straightforward. If you're creatively blocked, and I believe all of us are to some extent, it is possible, even probable, that you can learn to create more freely through your willing use of the tools this book provides. Just as doing hatha yoga stretches alters consciousness when all you are doing is stretching. Doing the exercises in this book alters consciousness when all you are doing is writing and playing. Do these things and a breakthrough will follow, whether you believe in it or not, whether you call it a spiritual awakening or not. In short, the theory doesn't matter as long as the practice itself does. What you are doing is creating pathways in your consciousness through which the creative forces can operate. Once you agree to clearing these pathways, your creativity emerges. In a sense, your creativity is like your blood. Just as blood is a fact of your physical body and nothing you invented, creativity is a fact of your spiritual body and nothing that you must invent. My own journey. I began teaching the creativity workshops in New York. I taught them because I was told to teach them. One minute I was walking in the West Village on a cobblestone street with beautiful afternoon light. The next minute I suddenly knew that I should begin teaching people, groups of people, how to unblock. Maybe it was a wish exhaled on someone else's walk. Certainly, Greenwich Village must contain a greater density of artists, blocked and otherwise, than nearly any place else in America. I need to unblock, someone may have breathed out. I know how to do it. I may have responded, picking up the cue. My life has always included strong internal directives, marching orders, I call them. Okay, on the next page, the little thing says, in the brush doing what is doing, it'll stumble on what couldn't do by oneself, by Robert Motherwell. In any case, I suddenly knew that I did not know how to unblock people and that I was meant to do so. Cats. Let me try this again. In any case, I suddenly knew that I did not... How many more pages is there of this? Okay, I'm almost there. Sometimes if I read too much, I start out loud. I can read in my head for hours, but out loud, I don't know. Sometimes I start jumbling my words and saying gibberish. In any case, I suddenly knew that I did know how to unblock people and that I was meant to do so, starting then and there with the lessons I myself had learned. Where did the lessons come from? In 1978, in January, I stopped drinking. I had never thought drinking made me a writer, but now I suddenly thought not drinking might make me stop. In my mind, drinking and writing went together like, well, scotch and soda. For me, the trick was always getting past the fear and onto the page. I was playing beat the clock, trying to write before the booze closed in like fog and my window of creativity was blocked again. By the time I was 30 and abruptly sober, I had an office on the Paramount lot and had made a whole career out of that kind of creativity. Creative in spasms, creative as an active will and ego, creative on behalf of others. Creative, yes, but in spurts, like blood from a severed carotid artery. A decade of writing, and all I knew was how to make these headlong dashes and hurl myself against all odds at the wall of whatever I was writing. If creativity was spiritual in any case, it was only in its resemblance to a crucifixion. I fell upon the thorns of prose. I bled. If I could have continued writing the old painful way, I would certainly still be doing it. The week I got sober, I had 2 national magazine pieces out, a newly minted feature script, and an alcohol problem I could not handle any longer. I told myself that if sobriety meant no creativity, I did not want to be sober. Yet I recognized that drinking would kill me and the creativity. I needed to learn to write sober or else give up writing entirely. Necessity, not virtue, was the beginning of my spirituality. I was forced to find a new creative path, and that is where my lessons began. I learned to turn my creativity over to the only God I could believe in, the God of creativity, the life force Dylan Thomas called, the force that through the green fuse drives the flower. I learned to get out of the way and let that creative force work through me. I learned to just show up at the page and write down what I heard. Writing became more like eavesdropping and less like inventing a nuclear bomb. It wasn't so tricky and it didn't blow up on me anymore. I didn't have to be in the mood, and I didn't have to take my emotional temperature to see if inspiration was pending. I simply wrote. No negotiations, good, bad, none of my business. I wasn't doing it. By resigning as the self-conscious author, I wrote freely. Also at the side it says, the position of the artist is humble. He is essentially a channel, by Piet Mon something. Some things I just can't pronounce, I'm so sorry. In retrospect, I'm astounded I could let go of the drama of being a suffering artist. Nothing dies harder than a bad idea, and few ideas are worse than the ones we have about art. My brother's singing in the background, like, my come up is gonna be so great. So great, y'all. We can charge so many things off to our suffering artist identity. Drunkenness, promiscuity, fiscal problems, a certain ruthlessness or self-destructiveness in matters of the heart. We all know how broke, crazy, promiscuous, unreliable artists are, and if they don't have to be, then what's my excuse? The idea that I could be sane, sober, and creative terrified me, implying, as it did, the possibility of personal accountability. You mean if I have these gifts, I'm supposed to use them? Yes. Time for a sip of my coffee. We're almost done, you guys. This is going to be a lot of reading for me. Providentially, this is a big word. Providentially, we're just going to go with that. I was sent another blocked writer to work with, and on at this time. I began to teach him what I was learning. Get out of the way, let it work through you, accumulate pages, not judgments. He too began to unblock. Now there were 2 of us. Soon I had another victim. This one, a painter. The tools worked for visual artists too. This was very exciting to me. In my grander moments, I imagined I was turning into a creative cartographer, mapping a way out of confusion for myself and whoever wanted to follow. I never planned to become a teacher. I was only angry I never had a teacher myself. Why did I have to learn what I learned the way I learned it? All by trial and error, all by walking into walls. We artists should be more teachable, I thought. Shortcuts and hazards of the trail could be flagged. These were the thoughts that eddied with me as I took my afternoon walk, enjoying the light off the Hudson, plotting what I would write next. Enter the marching orders. I was to teach. Within a week, I was offered a teaching position and space at the New York Feminist Art Institute, which I had never heard of. My first class, blocked painters, novelists, poets, and filmmakers, assembled itself. I began teaching them lessons that are now in this book. Since that class, there have been many others and many more lessons as well. God must become an activity in our consciousness. Joel S. Goldsmith. That's a little blurb at the side. This is also the last page. And then the next video. The Artist's Way began as an informal class notes mandated by my partner, Mark Bryan. As word of mouth spread, I began mailing out packets of materials, a peripatetic. I can't say this word, you guys. Peripatetic. Jungian. Scary. I don't know what that is. John Gianni spread word of the techniques wherever he lectured, seemingly everywhere. Requests for materials always followed. Next, the Creation Spirituality Network got word of the work, and people wrote in from Dubuque, British Columbia, Indiana. Students materialized all over the globe. I am in Switzerland with the State Department. Please send me ... So I did. Some words, guys, I just don't know, and I can't say it, so please don't rip me up in the comments, okay? I'm trying. The packets expanded, and the number of students expanded. Finally, as a result of some very pointed urging from Mark, write it all down. You can help a lot of people. It should be a book. I began formally to assemble my thoughts. I wrote, and Mark, who is by this time my co-teacher and taskmaster, told me what I had left out. I wrote more, and Mark told me what I had still left out. He reminded me that I had seen plenty of miracles to support my theories, and urged me to include those too. I put on the page what I had been putting into practice for a decade. The resulting pages emerged as a blueprint for do-it-yourself recovery. Like mouth-to-mouth resuscitation or the Heimlich maneuver, the tools in this book are intended as lifesavers. Please use them and pass them on. Many times I have heard words to this effect. Before I took your class, I was completely separate from my creativity. The years of bitterness and loss had taken their toll. Then, gradually, the miracle started to happen. I have gone back to school to get my degree in theater. I'm auditioning for the first time in years. I'm writing on a steady basis. And most important of all, I finally feel comfortable calling myself an artist. I doubt I can convey to you the feelings of the miraculous that I experienced as a teacher, witnessing the before and after in the lives of students. Over the duration of the course, the sheer physical transformation can be startling, making me realize that the term enlightenment is a literal one. Students' faces often take on a glow as they contact their creative energies. The same charged spiritual atmosphere that fills a great work of art can fill a creativity class. In a sense, we are creative beings. Our lives become our work of art. And that is it for the introduction portion of the book, you guys. The next part will be Spiritual Electricity, the Basic Principles. And I think I'm done for the day. But we will move on in part 3, so stay tuned. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video.